Jeff, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right. I don't know what happened there. Where'd you lose me? Like right at the beginning when I started everything?
Yep, the broadcast has been started, and we have heard nothing except, Jeff, can you hear me? So go ahead and kick us off.
All right. Let's try this again. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday, October 19th, 2016 episode of Free Webinar Wednesdays. This is Eric Cook, and I'm with WSI Digital Marketing, where we work with businesses and organizations on helping them understand and leverage the power of the internet as a strategic business tool. You can learn more about me and WSI at www.poweredbywsi.com. With me this week is my good friend and Free Webinar Wednesday partner, Mr. Jeff Simpkins. Jeff, say hello to everybody out there in Free Webinar Wednesday world. All right, Jeff, for some reason, I do not appear to be hearing you now.
That would be because I forgot to click unmute. So
you
we're
think we're rusty or
something this week?
I guess so. Yeah. Welcome to our webinar.
Greetings, everybody.
You.
This is Jeff Simpkins. I'm with Community Bank Consulting, Inc., and you can learn more about me and Community Bank Consulting online at www.communitybankconsulting.com. All
right. I'm going to stay off of mute. You're going to stay off of mute, and we'll make sure everybody gets to hear the remainder of the show. How's that? So, excellent. So first off, I want to apologize to those of you that showed up last week for the show. I had something come up and was not able to participate. So Jeff indicated that he was on and saw that there were a handful of folks waiting anxiously for what it was that Jeff and I were going to share, and we never did get a chance to do a show. So really sorry about that, but we are back this week and looking forward to sharing some thoughts with everybody. I was actually en route to Toronto and had a change in schedule and was in Canada, and so logistics just didn't make it possible for me to get on the show or send a note out to everyone. So again, sorry about that. But the good news is I was in Toronto at our global convention and surrounded by several hundred of my other digital marketing colleagues from around the world, and some really cool speakers and lots of awesome vendors, and came back with a ton of really cool ideas on things that people should be thinking about related to digital strategy for the remainder of 16 and leading into next year. So before we officially jump in, I've got a couple of slides here to try to keep me focused a little bit. Want to remind everybody that today's show and all shows are recorded, made available at freewebinarwednesdays.com. So if anything that we talk about deserves a second look, or you'd like to share it with a friend or a colleague, you'll be able to do so as soon as the recording is available. And we do love to get audience participation from those of you that are listening and attending live. So if you'd like to use the chat functionality, I see we already have a couple of comments from the peanut gallery with some woohoos. So thank you, Mr. Perry, for that. But if you'd like to have a comment, question, go ahead and toss it in there, and Jeff and I will monitor that during today's presentation. So shall we go ahead and get started, Mr. Simpkins?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So we were in Toronto. My wife and I headed over and got to use our passports and cross the border, and we were in Toronto for pretty much the last half and all the weekend at our global convention. So once a year, consultants within the WSI world get together and convene someplace, and we usually participate in some advanced training, and then we have a couple of days of conference and a vendor expo area. And it's always a great opportunity if you're on Free Webinar Wednesdays and not exactly familiar with WSI, just brief little background. And I heard this, and I'm trying to figure out ways that I can work this into conversations now. So WSI has been around since 1BG. Do you have any idea what 1BG might be, Jeff? Because it took me a little bit to really make it click. I used to say
I do not.
Yeah, so I was like, what's he talking about? So I used to say we're now in our 21st year of operation, making us one of, if not the oldest organization focused on digital marketing. And yep, John, you cheated. Yep. So 1BG, maybe you didn't cheat, maybe you're just super smart, and I'm not, because I didn't catch it. But 1BG, yeah, it's a gold star. 1BG stands for before Google. So we were actually founded as an organization 1 year before the Google actually came on to the industry and started. One of the things I didn't realize, Google actually was the 26th search engine created on the World Wide Web. They were not the first, they weren't the second, they weren't even the 10th. They were the 26th search engine. So sometimes being first mover advantage is advantageous. Sometimes being first mover advantage has its challenges because not a lot of 1 through 25 exist any longer. But Google certainly has been able to adapt and shift and change over the years. And while it certainly is well known for its search capabilities, they have taken a close look at the digital marketplace and evolved along with it. So you've got G Suite, formerly known as Google Apps. You've got advertising. They purchased the Blogger platform. They're divesting in all sorts of other really cool things with artificial intelligence and predictive analytics. And so they have evolved. And I like to think WSI has done the same, because I'm sure that there are a lot of organizations out there that started 20, 15, 10 years ago focused on digital and have fizzled out or lost their competitive advantage. And one of the cool parts about being part of the WSI network is our continual focus on evolving and trying to stay ahead and abreast of what is going on in the world of digital. And so at this conference this year, it's interesting. Every year we go to these conferences and some things remain pretty consistent. Other things we talk about 1 year and then we don't talk about them the next year, and but that's okay, because we know some stuff's going to last and some stuff is going to shift and change. So what I wanted to do for today's free webinar Wednesdays is just walk through some of the high points that I brought back from the conference and some observations as to why, either as a business owner or a manager or a digital marketer or whatever your role might be, you might want to put these on your radar screen to learn more about it. Of course, love to chat with you if you've got questions, so you can hit me up, and I always love talking about this stuff. But if nothing else, just to make sure that these things are on your radar screen. So the conference kind of officially kicked off with Dan Monahan, our CEO, chairman, founder, playing off of the whole what happens, S happens, and talked about it from a shifting perspective. And he led off his presentation with something that I typically will do when I talk with banks to get them thinking about things, but he took it another step further, which I thought was really pretty cool. A lot of times, especially Jeff and I do a lot of work in the banking industry, it's fun to take a look outside of the industry at what organizations are challenging the status quo and upsetting the apple cart. And I think we're all familiar with Uber and the Uberization of given industries. How can I Uberize the banking industry, or how can I Uberize the movie industry, or how can I Uberize the lodging or hotel industry. And so much like Dan, whenever I have an opportunity to be in an Uber, I'll ask a question, how long have you been doing it and how's it been? And invariably, the how's it been, I've heard people comment about, they're in between jobs, or they've got kids and they want to be able to take a little bit more control over their life or their flexible schedule. I'd say probably the coolest Uber that I've been in, and those of you that follow me on Instagram or Twitter may have caught a snapshot of this. I probably should have dumped this picture into my presentation, but I was actually picked up in Colorado and taken to the airport after a session in a Tesla Model S electronic vehicle, which was my first time actually in a Tesla, and I was amazed at the gigantic touch screen that was in the dashboard, and before I knew it, I was at the airport, and I made Sean, the driver, I even remember his name, stand outside of his car so I could get a snapshot of my coolest Uber ever. But Uber's story is one that, you think about, they were founded in San Francisco. The yellow taxi company had a very strong foothold there. I have heard, but have not been able to validate, that the idea or the business concept was brought to the taxi industry, and Yellow basically said, no, that's not the way we're going to do it. We're comfortable with the way things are being done. And in just a few short years, the existence of Uber came around and caused the yellow taxi company in San Francisco to go into bankruptcy. So the shift in where your competition is coming from is certainly one that, if you're not paying attention, and of course, again, a reference to the banking industry that Jeff and I know and love, there's no shortage of that's the way we've always done it, or resistance to change, or concern about compliance, and sometimes holding organizations back. But so all the Uber stuff that was originally, I was like, yeah, I heard this all before. And so one of the things that I thought was kind of cool was, you can go onto Uber and you can pick an Uber X or a rideshare or an Uber Black or an Uber SUV. But one of the things that Dan proposed was, at some point, and in Pittsburgh, they're actually, through Carnegie Mellon, they're testing self-driving Ubers. And I think we're all familiar with the concept of self-driving vehicles, and Apple is looking at that. Google's had self-driving cars. But the whole concept of being able to hail an Uber, and instead of picking what type of Uber you want it to yourself or share it, one of the things that he proposed was, you might want to do a little bit of work on your way. So you're going to, request an Uber desk or an Uber office, or maybe you've got to go from point A to B and it's a long trip, so you're going to get an Uber bed because you want to snag a nap. And so these self-driving vehicles will pick you up and have certain amenities attached to them that will allow you to carry on a little, conference call. You'll be able to have a work desk. You can coordinate and collaborate with one another. You can sit back and relax and watch TV. But the whole concept around what technology's next step in all of this is going to be is how that could potentially change the future. So it was kind of cool that I'd never really thought of that. And when you start looking at self-driving, that obviously is going to have a little bit of an impact on those that are driving for Uber, and, whether they will or won't be displaced as a result of technology. But thinking about things that, if I can just get in the car and I can hop on the laptop and I've got a desk and there's maybe a phone there or an internet connection, and I can go ahead and get some work done while I'm going from A to B, that's not really something that I've heard other people really talk much about as it relates to using an Uber service. So that was kind of a cool way of just, reminding us that even though we think what has happened recently is the end-all be-all, that there's other things that are on the horizon that very well could be doing a big deal. So at the conference, WSI announced our brand new website, WSI World, as a consultant with a website that's branded under the old look and feel. Obviously, this is now causing me to think I'm going to have to do a little bit more updating and go out and grab a new version of my site to match corporate. But one of the cool parts about what the new website has done is really taken a look at the concepts of what's referred to in the industry as personas. And so as a corporation, what WSI did is really kind of thought about, and what every business really should be doing these days, is thinking about who are their key customers and how do you build a service, craft a message, write copy, select images that go after that individual persona. And they identified two personas. They gave them names, and one was a business owner in his mid-50s, not necessarily comfortable with technology, knows that it's coming but doesn't really have budget for it. So looking more for someone to help educate and guide him along the way. And then the other one was a marketing director, a little bit younger, digitally savvy, might even have some technology in her own office that she can rely on, but realizing that even her internal staff doesn't fully have time or the capability of keeping up on how everything is shifting. And so as you visit WSI World and you kind of read the information and you look at the blogs, the focus of those articles and content is really around those two personas. So lesson number one is really thinking about at your business level, who are the clients that you really want to do more business with, and what makes them tick? What are their pain points? What are their challenges? What do they look like? Do they have kids? Do they not? Are they married? Are they college educated? Do they have staff working for them? Approximately how old they are? What's their digital capabilities? And really spending some time trying to understand who your clients are and then producing information that's right for them. And in the examples that we just talked about with the business owner versus the marketing director, those two people have a completely different perspective on technology and digital marketing and its importance within the organization. And so when they're reading different types of material, one is going to go down one path of learning, the other is going to go down the other, and hopefully both of those will ultimately end up in an opportunity for a consultant to have a conversation. And so think about that in your own business as to how that relates to who you serve as an organization. We also announced in, I'm not going to share it because it's a little bit more of an internal document, but it's pretty excited. We've been participating as consultants, and there's roughly 1,000 of us in 80 countries around the world, in a global kind of intelligence report. And so consultants from around the world have been providing feedback of what types of projects we're doing, who we're working with, who the decision makers are. And so as an internal, and this is kind of one of the reasons why I think WSI has maintained its ability to continue operation all the way from 1BG to today, is our focus on looking at things. And this is one of the first big picture comprehensive reports that we've really done. I mean, this is probably the most comprehensive we've done ever. And so I'm really excited about the arrival of the formal report in November and being able to dive in and see if there's even some additional data that I can bring to bear for our clients. And so if you have an opportunity to work with a WSI consultant in your neck of the woods, know that the data that's coming out of this is likely going to be put to good use in order to serve your business, because you can see over 100,000 different clients, all sorts of different industries, tremendous amount of learning that we've gone through, which has been pretty cool. So the digital overload certainly has shown that there are not a shortage of options. This wasn't a formal presentation, but digital solutions that are available to us as consultants, first off, but even to consumers. And no wonder consumers are confused. So back in 2011, and these are really small pictures, so, you know, more ideally to represent kind of size and magnitude as opposed to expect you to recognize all the logos. But the marketing technology landscape back in 2011 had about 150 different service providers: email, SEO, landing page, conversion, website building, employee portals, calendaring, event scheduling, those sorts of things. Doubled in 2012, 2014 over 1,000, 2015 doubled again. 2016 they just came out with close to 4,000 different digital marketing providers and services in all sorts of different categories. So you can see the red is advertising and promotion, the orange is content and experience, the yellow is social and relationships, and you can kind of continue on there. But it further reinforces, from a WSI perspective, why we likely are going to be needed by our clients, because most businesses are going to look at this and go, holy crap, there's no way I can learn it all. And most businesses are like that. If you want to try to do any sort of investing on your own, the complexity and the options that are available in the world of investments will likely cause you to go to a professional investment advisor. The complexity of tax codes and legal and contracts likely cause you to go to an attorney or somebody that specializes in those areas, a tax advisor or a specialized accountant. So the niche areas, or for my Canadian friends, the niche areas that exist and are out there in order for us to be able to provide those services. You know, it's a pretty powerful thing. So I see that there was a comment, but it was a joke. Nice one, Jim. Yes, we're going to zoom to 6,000%, so we can zoom in and take a look at each one of these. If you go to Marketing Land and do a search for Marketing Technology Landscape, or that chiefmartech.com, you'll be able to pull this. And they've got some full res, big PDFs that you can pull down. But just at the magnitude, it's no wonder when you really jump into this as a business owner and you get confused and you wonder, oh my gosh, what direction should I go? How should I do this? It's no surprise that confusion is going to ensue if you're not careful. So let's go ahead. So some of the other additional takeaways, these are from some of the sessions that I actually had an opportunity to sit in on. The digital roadmap is one we came out with last year, and it helps set the stage, and it's part of our second edition of our Digital Minds book. And at the surface, it looks complicated, maybe not as complicated as what the digital service provider map is. But this is designed to be somewhat like a subway system, in the sense that if you know where you're at and know where you want to go, this is designed to help you understand really which areas along the way you will be able to interact with other digital solutions, because it's no longer a situation where things exist basically in a vacuum. And so if we take a look just in the area of social, for example, you can see that that's the light blue line, and that's going to intersect with all of the other lines that are part of this digital roadmap. So as we kind of walk down through and we start with social, you can see that search engine optimization is going to intersect with reviews and ratings and recommendations and some of the other things that are going to influence the likelihood that Google and other search engines are going to find you and rank you when somebody goes online looking for the products and services that you offer. Then you're going to see it continues down into marketing automation, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit, because marketing automation really hit our conference hard last year and hit it even harder this year. So marketing automation, when we get into things like lead scoring and understanding the value of the types of customers and visitors that are coming to our website, what they've done in the past and what we want them to do moving forward. And then it intersects with the actual website itself, because while social certainly is a great way of interacting with people, ultimately you'd like to get them to your website, because that might be where you've got your products and your services that they can purchase. In a world of banking, that's where we're properly disclosing rates and terms and fees. It's compliant. You might be able to get them to read your blog, to learn a little bit more about you. Then we're going to continue on. Analytics is going to play a part, where we're going to gain insights from social interaction, plus tie that back into the website and other marketing automation elements. The inbound marketing componentry then intersects, where we've got lure pieces and information that we're providing as educational and sharing, not necessarily selling products and services that is causing people to seek us out, because we're positioning ourselves as a trusted advisor, not necessarily somebody that's just trying to sell a product or a service. We may need to rely on some paid search to help drive traffic, especially if we're in a very competitive area and we've not done a real good job of doing the organic and the inbound and some of the other elements. Paid search, whether it's banner and display or advertising, remarketing, retargeting, to help with content generation. So you can see there's all sorts of different ways we can play off of the paid environment. And then, of course, we're going to trickle into the mobile device, and not only making sure that customers and visitors can see and engage with us on mobile on our website, but how are they taking us with them in their daily lives? Are they checking in? Are they offering reviews? Are they taking pictures and sharing with their friends? So you can see all of these things are interrelated to one another. So even though this was announced last year, it was still very much a predominant theme. The one thing that did change that I picked up on was marketing automation was referred to and is referred to in our book as email and CRM, customer relationship management. And the whole concept of marketing automation has really taken over that area, and we'll talk a little bit more about marketing automation here in just a little bit. When we chat about the ability to get noticed, there were some pretty cool things. There was a couple of vendors there that had some interesting software related to display advertising and the ability to identify prospects and strategically position your message in front of them, whether they're on a desktop or a mobile device, whether they're in an app or just browsing mobile websites natively in Safari or on their Chrome browser. And so one of the interesting tactics that I heard about, and I apologize for using so many banking analogies, but indulge me, I'll use another one here. Let's say you're currently a customer of Chase Bank. We'll pick big banks. And Chase Bank wants to advertise a particular product or service, more than likely their credit card, because they spend a lot of money advertising their Chase Sapphire cards. But let's say they wanted to advertise their Chase card to people that are banking with other financial institutions. There's ways now within mobile advertising, and it'll depend on whether or not you can get the ad actually in the app itself, or you can just present banner advertisements when somebody's browsing the web on a mobile device. They're two totally different things. But you can go in and you can find the app identification number, the app ID, for maybe Wells Fargo's mobile banking app, or Zion's Bank, or Bank of America. And you can grab those and then combine that with other apps. Maybe if they're interested in promoting home loans, they could find anybody that has Zillow or Realtor.com installed on their phone. And then while you're browsing around the web, they could present advertisements for, hey, get a home loan. And if you've got Zillow installed on your mobile device, there's a chance that you might be looking at houses, might be interested in buying a home, making a move. And all of that advertisement can also be triggered additionally through remarketing, can also be triggered through geocode, geofencing. So if I'm looking primarily for people that have Zillow installed on their phone that reside in a 20-mile radius around Indianapolis, Indiana, I now have the ability to provide that level of targeting and, you know, make sure that you've got a nice landing page that they can click through, and it's mobile optimized, and it's got a lead capture form. But digital and display advertising, and that's just one example of a plethora. On the flip side, that can sometimes creep people out a little bit, because at some point people are going to say you're tracking too much. So we're very cognizant of the fact that these powers can be used for good and evil, and we make sure that our powers are used for good. But there are certainly organizations out there that either intentionally or unintentionally don't realize that, you know, you have to let banners time out, and you have to limit the number of times you can show somebody something. Otherwise, you turn into the creepy stalker business that they can't get rid of, and now you're doing yourself more damage than good. So certainly the ability to be noticed in a digital world through paid advertisements and user behavior and remarketing is one that we continue to see evolve, and that's pretty exciting. I sat through a session with one of my colleagues from France, actually. It goes by FX, Francois Xavier. And so he did a session on employee advocacy, which is something that I've been talking about quite a bit in the banking space. Had a couple of really interesting case studies that he had done in the insurance industry with a couple of hundred employees. And what employee advocacy really does is it positions you as an organization to train and empower your staff to be advocates on your behalf in the world of social media. And so producing content, sharing information, being comfortable, and again, back to the banking industry, being comfortable with your staff having access to social media during banking hours on their bank's computer or using their mobile devices, but producing content that you want your employees to share and teaching them how to build conversation and establish reputational credibility through social media. A little different than the concept of social selling, which we talked about last year quite a bit, where you get into more of training a salesperson on how to use LinkedIn to do creative searches for people that have a specific title and how do you reach out to them. The social advocacy is much more laid back and about really just empowering your employees to share helpful information that would be of interest to the markets and the networks that they're connected to. Social selling is kind of a subset of employee advocacy, but it was a pretty cool session that just kind of reinforced some of what I've been thinking about, the challenges that most businesses have in the world of social. Even if you just kind of take a look at Facebook, the average organic reach of a business post on Facebook is about 6%. But if you can employ a social advocacy program for your staff and you can get them to share that information, to comment on it, to like it, and it distributes that information into their network, you're going to have a much, much better penetration of that message than if you rely on the business itself or have to pay to boost and promote it and spread it that way. So employee advocacy, the lesson out of this is really figure out or give time to having the discussions around how can you educate and train and empower your employees to carry that message for your organization out to the rest of the world. So I think that's going to be a big area, and we're already striking up some conversations with a couple of our clients in that area right now. So marketing automation, this one hit pretty hard last year. We actually had the big dog in inbound and marketing automation at our conference, HubSpot out of Boston, and they were there. HubSpot is an amazing tool, does a lot of really powerful stuff, but it is a little bit pricier of a solution than what some small businesses can afford, and so there have been a lot of entrants into this area. But even at a high-level enterprise, you've got big companies like Salesforce, Marketo, Eloqua, that are in use at very, very large organizations around the world. Marketing automation as a service essentially is a way for you to understand and analyze a process within a business and automate as much of that as possible to help that prospect go from information gathering to ultimately becoming a customer of your business. So you think about, somebody that visits a bank website, they might read a couple blog posts, maybe they're even logging into online banking because they might have a checking account, but you don't really know who they are because they haven't identified themselves, they haven't subscribed to any of your newsletters, so we can't tie their name back to their computer. But we know that somebody's been visiting the website and maybe they finally get to the point where they download a little helpful information guide about how to become a homeowner for the first time, a little how-to booklet where they provide their name and their email address and they get the booklet emailed to them. At that point, the website now knows, hey, this guy named Jeff Simpkins just downloaded a guide, a book, a resource, subscribed to my email. Whatever the case is, you've now earned the trust of Jeff to give you his name and his email address. And what a marketing automation system does, first off, it looks and it sees whether that individual has been to the site in the past and puts two and two together. So it goes back and it says, well, this person actually has been to our website several times over the last couple of weeks, and they've read some blog posts, and they've clicked on some banners, and they've looked at the About Us page, and they've checked our locations to see if maybe there's an office nearby where they live. And now, maybe 2 weeks into it, they've given us their name. But we can go back and we can now associate all of that activity with Jeff or whoever it might be. So then we can go back and we can see, well, what is the typical path when somebody wants to become a new customer of us here at XYZ Community Bank. But what it also does, and as you think about your business and what typically happens when somebody is interested in becoming a first-time homeowner or scheduling an appointment to speak with you as a financial advisor or booking an appointment as a dentist, whatever the case is, what typically goes into that process? Do you send emails? Are there helpful guides and other articles? Do you have webinars or maybe blog posts on your website that you'd like to point them to, or maybe remind them to be a fan of yours on Facebook or follow you on Twitter? The marketing automation system, as the name implies, automates all of that. So you can set those workflows up. So when Jeff downloads that helpful guide on how to become a homeowner for the first time, I may have done a webinar 6 months ago or did a presentation for the local Realtors Association a year ago that would be information that he might like to know about. And I can build all of that into a workflow that at day 0, send him a little welcome message and provide him with a link to download the guide. But maybe 4 or 5 days later, I shoot him a reminder email, or, hey, did you know we had a webinar on this? Would you like to watch it? And I can give him that link. And so businesses can take the time to identify kind of what their key product or service is and map out what the flow ideally would be when somebody expresses interest and where each of those touch points would essentially take them. And at some point, Jeff might click on a button in an email and start a mortgage application and decide, yep, I'm going to do it. That can change the marketing flow as well, because we may not need to send him any more convincing material. We now are going to be sending him assurance material that you've picked the right choice. You are doing the right thing. This is going to be a good move. And we start sending him, instead of tips on repairing your credit or planning for a down payment, the power of building equity and what a home equity loan will do for you a few years down the road as you build equity in the new home that you're about to purchase through us. So marketing automation is at the risk of sounding kind of dorky, super cool. And it forces a business to have some pretty important discussions about why somebody would want to do business with them, but then digitizes and automates that, and then it gives you the ability to just ensure that everybody gets treated at a certain level equally as they kind of go through that process, but provide outs along the way when somebody decides that they want to do something a little different. So marketing automation is one that I think we're going to be spending a lot of time on. I've actually installed marketing automation code on my own WSI website, and I'm going to do some testing just on my own site so that I can continue to eat a little bit more of the dog food and be very, very familiar with it. But that's certainly an area that you're going to want to take a look at. The vendor we just struck another great strategic partnership with is a company called SharpSpring, and we're really excited about their agency program and being able to bring that to bear on behalf of our clients, and talk to several consultants from around the world that are using SharpSpring to help their customers just really kill it in lead gen and business development. And so pretty excited about what SharpSpring possibly has to offer our clients. So that'll be kind of cool. I talked a couple of times, and it was Facebook at Work. They just rebranded it now. It's called Workplace. As one of the companies that was allowed into the private beta for Facebook several months ago, we've been using the closed business version of Facebook now known as Workplace, for a number of months. And one of the very cool parts about that was the engagement and interactivity and information sharing that was going on while we were at the conference as an organization, allowing each of those conference attendees, vendors, suppliers, speakers, to be able to contribute their information into the network. So I couldn't make it to every single session. There were some that ran concurrently, and I wanted to go to this one, but I also wanted to go to this other one. So consultants were capturing information, doing videos, posting slides, copying links. Facebook, the Workplace, has a private chat system, much like Facebook Messenger for regular Facebook. So we were able to send messages back and forth with one another. You know, are you going to the cocktail party? Do you want to go for a run tomorrow morning? So we were really excited about using this for our organization, and just the level of info that we were able to collect and share and disseminate across the organization. This is now available. I think it's $2 or $3 per user per month, but it's now available to the rest of the world. And if you are interested in employing a internal communication platform that is completely separate from the public world of Facebook, but built on the backbone that Facebook is, because everybody seems to know how to use Facebook, groups and chats and tagging and hyperlinks and hashtags and all the other things, this could be a very powerful way for your organization to instill a culture of sharing and knowledge transfer and just basically a social community within its own four walls and reduce or eliminate the risk of that information getting outside to the rest of the world. And so more and more businesses are looking at ways that they can more efficiently communicate with one another with platforms like Slack or project management systems. Facebook at work, I was very impressed, and it was pretty sweet. So been able to go back into that and continue conversations and some other dialogue as well. So that's been very powerful. So that's kind of the end of it. I know there was a ton more, but I forced myself to only pick a couple of those. I'm going to go ahead and just check with Jeff and see, do we have any comments or questions with the audience? And if not, any observations or thoughts that you might like to share?
No comments or questions at this point. Yeah, pretty interesting information that you presented. I was kind of fascinated of your description of using the apps that are installed on one's smart device as a way of identifying information about a person.
Yeah.
I'm pretty aware. I would call it a background awareness of all of the things that are tracked about us today, but I had not thought of that one. That was interesting.
Yeah. So, and again, some apps, like your games, Candy Crush or Clash of Clans, if you're not, and the saying has always been, if you're not paying for a service, you are the service. Or if you're not paying for something, you are the payment. So we all participate in Facebook because it's free, but our information is being used to be sold to advertisers and they're marketing to us. If you download one of those games, chances are, even if it's solitaire or a flashlight program, there's probably in-app advertising that will push banners at you. And, so a lot of the third-party apps that support advertising can be part of this network. So your advertisement might even show up in the app itself. But when you take a look at like the banking, for example, banking apps don't have advertisements in them, unless maybe it's a promotional offer from the bank itself or a notification. But you're not going to log into your mobile banking app and find a push advertisement like you would see in, a Candy Crush. But if you get out of your app and you use other apps or you browse around the web, that's when those advertisements can show up. So, yeah, there were a lot of consultants in that session in particular that when they started giving some of those examples, everybody was just kind of looking at each other like, seriously, they can do this? Wow. Oh my gosh. And, played off of this is creepy, but this is cool, because certainly it has a little bit of both. But again, we use our powers for good, not for evil. So that's what we roll with. So I saw the question come up here. Let me see. Let's see. Conversation around apps reminds me of recent conversations about the evolution of artificial intelligence that would eventually make apps obsolete. There was a little bit of talk about artificial intelligence at our conference. I met with somebody for breakfast Thursday morning before our conference started who was also in the digital space. And he was predicting artificial intelligence is going to trickle its way into search engines. And at some point, and I think this was a kind of a lofty goal, but he said at some point I can see Google ads being obsolete because there's going to be enough data collected about us and our activity and what we want, where a search engine is going to provide us with one result, and that one result is going to be the result that will come back to us that will be the most appropriate based off of where we've been, our reviews and ratings, the activities that we've exhibited in the past. So instead of coming up with a search results page that has, several hundred pages of 10 listings each, at some point will artificial intelligence get to the point where it just says, nope, this is what you want, Eric, here you go. I think that was a pretty bold statement, and you're going to have to be pretty trusting that that one solution is really going to be the best solution for you. But artificial intelligence didn't make its way into as much of the discussions as I look back, thinking that it maybe should have been. So furthermore, so let's see, there's another comment here. KPMG just released a report called Meet EVA, Enlightened Virtual Assistant, the future face of the invisible bank. It's a good read. I'm thinking you need to email that to me. And I know you know my email address. I would love to check that out. And yes, I think that would be a very, very interesting thing. We also had another service provider, and I did, yes, Bob, another service provider that was there I didn't mention in my little recap, but a company called Page Cloud. This was a web building service positioned, as they reported it, like no other, in the sense that essentially getting away from the understanding and the importance of incorporating HTML and page code in building a website, and getting it to the point where, and this is one of the things that I heard a lot of consultants really talk about, is getting it to the point where anybody can build a web page, which on an empowerment perspective is good, but of course not everybody understands elements of design and conversion strategy and different ways that you build an engaging and an interesting looking page versus a MySpace page with blinky flashy graphics and rainbows everywhere and all sorts of other things that, back in the days of MySpace, I'm just thinking of some of the gaudiest websites that you can think of, and MySpace pages really jump out at me. So Page Cloud was another one of our partners that was there. There was another gentleman who spoke by the name of Ollie Gardner, who is the founder of a company called Unbounce. Had one of the absolute funniest yet thought-provoking presentations on the whole concept of kind of putting the consumer experience and leveraging data on its nose. So that was really, really good. He would be somebody that I'd love to get on Free Webinar Wednesdays, but I also don't have the budget to be able to do that unless Jeff wants to go halvesies on me, and I'm sure he came with quite a price tag. But Unbounce, which specializes in landing page creation, so a lot of other really thought-provoking elements. But yes, gonna definitely check out Page Cloud and take a look at that as an option for some of our clients that might be a little bit more budget conscious, but still want something that's really, really cool and easy to manage. So all sorts of fun stuff. Well, that about wraps it. If there are any other questions or comments, but again, just kind of put the whole thought out there. So marketing automation, even if you don't implement a marketing automation system, but even at the price points that we can do, it's almost a no-brainer from a financial perspective. But thinking about the process of your digital consumer and what they go through to become a customer is a good first step, even if it's not done with the intent of going into marketing automation, but it's still an important component. Understanding how you can leverage your employees, train them, empower them, get them excited about sharing information about your organization to get the word out. The power of digital advertising and seeing how you can be found, whether it's through social and organic or through digital and ads. Yeah, those are kind of the main high points, and of course would certainly be interested in diving deeper on any of these if anybody is interested. But put them on your radar screen, create a Google alert, browse around, find resource material. and start the learning process, because this is where things are headed. And to remain competitive, you're going to have these sorts of things in place in order to remain relevant in the 2017 and beyond. So that is it, Jeffrey. Any closing thoughts on your part?
Thank you very much, Eric.
Cool. Well, that wraps this week's session of Free Webinar Wednesdays. I will be taking the RV on a road show next week, and the hope is I will be someplace where I'll be able to get a decent Wi-Fi connection, and we'll be doing Free Webinar Wednesdays from the Winnebago. So we'll do a Where's Waldo check-in. Maybe we'll have some screenshots of some wilderness and some campfire, but we'll think of something digital to talk about, but we'll do it from the woods. So with that teaser, we'll let you get on with the rest of your week. Thank you so much for joining us. Great to be back again. Again, sorry about missing last week, but we will see you next week on freewebinarwednesdays.com. Until then, have a great one. Bye-bye, everybody.